Hello, this week's Fact Me Up is all about sport ball, specifically American sport ball. Did you know that at one time Brighton has ruled the UK in most American sports? If you didn't, you will in a bit. Roll titles. Ah, baseball. It's not just rounders soundtracked by a Wurlitzer. No way. At the start of the 21st century, the Brighton Buccaneers were the top baseball team in the whole of the UK. They were the winners or runners-up of the British Baseball League 6 years out of 7. Their ground at Waterhall was regarded as the best baseball diamond in the country. Indeed, Team GB played their home internationals there. Unfortunately, the Brighton Buccaneers folded in the mid-zeros, the condition of the ground deteriorated, and GB switched to playing their games at the Croydon Pirates. Boo! Whilst the Brighton Baseball Club did get a team back in the top division in 2016, it will be an uphill struggle for the Brighton Jets to match their predecessors' achievements. Last season they won 3 games, lost 27 and finished rock bottom. Something Brighton folks regularly moan about is the lack of a permanent ice rink in the city. This state of affairs is somewhat amplified by the awesome legacy of the Brighton Tigers ice hockey team, who played at the so-called SS Brighton Stadium on West Street. Opened in 1934 as the world's largest covered seawater swimming pool, it was converted to an ice rink the following year, and the Brighton Tigers were founded to play there. Largely consisting of Canadians, they dominated British ice hockey for many years. Their crowning moment came in December 1957 when they defeated the Soviet Union's national team, the then reigning Olympic champions, 6-3. The closure of the ice rink in 1965 marked the end for the Tigers. They continued for another 2 years, playing away games only, before disappearing. Annoyingly, the site of their demolished stadium would remain empty for 25 years. It's now this here travel splodge. That's not entirely the end of the story of ice hockey in Brighton. A new team, the Brighton Royals, operated from 1977 to 1988, but they were hampered by the lack of a local venue. Each year, new proposals surface for an ice rink in Brighton, often located here at Black Rock, but so far they have come to nothing.
My career in the Brighton Tigers clubs lasted only 3 years before the sports stadium was dramatically pulled down by the evil Top Rank. But in those 3 years, I had more fun than I had in the previous 13. Well, in the early days of my watching the Brighton Tigers, the team was mostly made up of Canadians who were either on the way up or on the way down in their careers, and some of them were quite sensational. And the atmosphere in the sports stadium, if you think the Amex is great, you should have been there in those days, guys. It was something else. It's a wonderful facility to have for the town, from kids to people of my advanced years. It's a fantastic sport, and the atmosphere in the places like that is just quite extraordinary. It would be such a huge benefit for the town.
The Brighton Bears spent the middle 15 of their 30-year history as the Worthing Bears. Even when they were called Brighton, they often played their games at Burgess Hill. They were, however, for many years the biggest team in British basketball. The last 4 years of their existence were the most successful. They won the title in 2004, winning the Cup the year before and the year after, and in their final year, 2006, they fielded American superstar Dennis Rodman. Side note, I, Mr. Adam, attended Dennis Rodman's first Brighton game, home to Guildford Heat at Burgess Hill Triangle. I got a bit drunk and started heckling Rodman, who I considered a gimmick signing, from the back of the bleachers. Nick Nurse, the Bears' owner and head coach, left his seat at trackside in the middle of the game to come up and chat with me about it. You don't get that in Premier League football. Later on, my equally drunk mate, Mr. Dean, gate-crashed the post-match press conference where he sat on Dennis Rodman's lap sharing cigars with him. It turns out that Mr. Adams' misgivings were well-founded, since Brighton had broken the rules to play Rodman in the game. The Bears' 91-88 victory was scrubbed out and the game was awarded to Guildford 20-0. Brighton were also docked points and fined. At the end of the season, a knocked-off Nick Nurse moved back across the Atlantic. He's now assistant coach of the Toronto Raptors. Having lost their owner and head coach, the Brighton Bears were swiftly culled. American football first started being played in the UK with any level of seriousness in the mid-1980s, and the Brighton B52s were one of the top early teams. Indeed, they were the first British American football team to play an away game in the States, losing 77-6 to a San Francisco College side in October 1986. 11 years later, the B52s merged with the Crawley Raiders to create Sussex Thunder, but this team, which is still going, couldn't match the former's success. They did spend 2 seasons in the top division between 2009 and 2011, but got so pummeled that they opted to move to a lower division. But this episode is not just about Brighton teams from off of history taking part in long-running American sports. We have come to a leisure centre in deepest, darkest Haywards Heath to see a Brighton team taking part in one of the newest and fastest-growing North American sports of all. Modern roller derby, wrongly described as a mixture of chess and rugby but on quad skates, was invented by a group of women in Austin, Texas in 2001. Having recently been admitted to the Worldwide League, woof-da-da-da, the Brighton Rockers are a rising force in the sport.
It opens up the game to other teams that we can play. Now that we will be ranked in the world rankings, we can pick and choose who would be best suited to play us. Because it's an incredibly exciting sport. It is all different sorts of women playing in full gear, knocking each other over and having a great time doing it.
And that's the end of our roundup of American sports in Brighton. What's happening next week? Voiceover added in the edit, Mr. Adam. We're going to the movies. Next week, Fact Me Up runs down Brighton and Hove's pioneering role in the birth of cinema.